So the next project I'm going to do is wrapping the exhaust in exhaust wrap. It's definitely cosmetic. I mean, I guess it has some physical change where it definitely makes the exhaust a little bit cooler, as far as where your leg is. So there's that. I was also told that it helps hold the heat in the exhaust pipe, which I guess allows the exhaust to exit that much faster, which gives you a little bit more power. I don't really know, like I understand the physics of that, but I don't expect this bike to all of a sudden turn into a rocket ship. So, don't put too much stock into that. Well, the only thing I've done so far is I've taken off this heat shield. This heat shield goes right here. And first off, looking at the bike, I'm like, okay, cool. There's the heat shield. There's the two exhaust pipes. Took this heat shield off and I was like, whoa, looks like this exhaust pipe skipped leg day. It's pretty thin. And if you take that exhaust heat shield off, that pipe is not as thin. You can see it's right down here. It's way thicker. So I just wrap this exhaust pipe and then wrap that exhaust pipe. It would be fine, but the size difference, it was just, I don't know, it would bother me a little bit. So I'm gonna leave the heat shield on and wrap the pipe. Now, the only problem I have with this is to take the heat shield off. First off, there's a couple of clips on the bottom here, and here they are, all rusted up, but they still work. If I were to leave those clips on, put this back on a little bit. Right down here in the bottom, you can see sticking down. I could wrap over that, I suppose, but the tough part is there's not a lot of room in between the bottom of that clip and the top of the other exhaust pipe. So my plan right now is to cut those clips off and wrap the exhaust with the heat shield on there, only cutting off this part of the clip right here. So it's still resting on this bracket. It's still resting on this bracket, cutting off this little tab right here. That way there's nothing sticking down below, so it wraps nice and evenly. And then, that would mean that the wrap is holding the heat shield on, which honestly, the way you wrap, you overlap the wrap half the thickness at a time. And as long as you wrap it super tight, I'm not really too concerned about it rattling or coming off or anything like that. So, but to ensure I get a nice tight wrap, I'm not going to do it on the bike. Plus, I want to clean this up. So let's talk about that for a sec. Obviously, I got some rust going on. It's not crazy. I know it looks bad, but I mean, it's not too crazy as far as I'm concerned anyway. So, I know that there's a little bit of controversy around wrap, that it could, rot the pipes faster because it holds moisture in. I've also seen the total opposite of that. As long as you put your bike away dry, then I've known people that have wrap on there with zero problems. So, regardless, if this is gonna rot out, then whatever. Then I'll just get new pipes and I'll deal with it then. But in the meantime, this is what I'm doing. And this is how I'm gonna do it. So, I already got the heat shield off. I'm going to now take this first pipe off. I have a 12mm socket. I'm going to loosen up these two bolts here. Let's see how that goes. All right, cool. So I got to be honest with you guys. I was very nervous. There is some rust on here. I was super nervous about taking these nuts off. And I didn't want to, break the studs, go into the manifold. But it was medium pressure and these things broke free. So I was really happy to find that out. So, all right, took those two off. There's another mount down here. I'm gonna take this one off right here. Two more mounting bolts underneath here. So I just loosened those up. And again, same deal with these. Actually, I didn't loosen them up enough, but, well, this one's loose. They come right off. So let me get these two off. Okay, so getting the top nuts off of the manifold here. This one's obviously pretty easy. This one here is a little bit tricky. You can get in there with the extensions, as you can see. However, the clutch cable, which is right here, is directly in the way you can see it's bent up there of getting your socket in. And there's literally no play of getting that cable out of the way unless you detach it right here. So I detached the little bracket right here, and then I also detached the end of the cable from the clutch arm. Is that what you want to call it? I'm not really sure. Tough part is it's always under tension, right? So what I did was I pulled on the clutch lever to get the clutch arm to move forward. And then I jammed a screwdriver, which probably isn't the best way to do this, but I jammed a screwdriver underneath there and just kind of like held the screwdriver propped, released the clutch lever up top there, and that left enough slack on the cable for me to use my right hand to pull the cable out. So that's how I did that. To get it back on, you can, it might be a two-person job, you can put enough pressure on here with, you know, maybe like the end of like an extension ratchet or something that has good grip on here to push this forward in order to get the cable back in. So it's not impossible to push that. It's just a lot easier for this to move, you know, when you have it attached to the clutch. Anyway, I was able to get my extension. Once I get the clutch cable out of the way and down, I was able to get my extension up underneath and attached it to the nut, and that broke free pretty easily. So let's take that off. All right, so these connection points just keep popping up. I think I found finally the last one. If you look underneath, this whole, let me zoom out here, this whole support right here, which is attached to the exhaust, comes down, and there is, looks like it's a bolt right here. So another 12 millimeter. I'm going to take that off right now. Nope, I was wrong. This one looks like the last one. So you take off that bottom bolt right here, and that whole apparatus is actually connected to this top one right here. So I thought that this was just kind of holding on this shield, but I probably didn't even have to take this off, but I did. So I'm going to loosen up and take off that nut right there. Okay, so I just took this little shield off. On mine, it might be different on yours, but it's got like this little grommet with a little washer in between this shield and this support. So just keep track of everything. All right, so like I said, yes, finally, that was the last connection right here. So as you can see, quite a bit of play now. All right, so this little, not really sure what this is called, but it's almost like a giant washer in the sense that it's holding on the exhaust. So I got that one free. That one came off like immediately. The second I loosened up those nuts and took them off, that basically fell right off. This top one here is, or the forward one, is not really moving as easily, but now that I have the exhaust freed up, I'm gonna work on this. Maybe get in here with a screwdriver and do some light prying. Nothing crazy, because you don't want to, stop breaking stuff, but I'm gonna work on getting this loose. Okay, so I just worked at that for a couple of minutes, and getting this little cover off is tough. Just like anything, if it's coming off like these studs here, it's mounted on this top one and the one that's underneath. And if you take this off, or you try to take it off at all at an angle, like prying up top here, it's going to bind up on the bottom stud. So it wants to come straight off, right? Well, you can't really get underneath here to pry underneath to get it to come straight off. So basically what I did was I pushed it all back in so I know it was sitting square on the studs. And then I just rocked and pulled on the exhaust, knowing that the exhaust is going to come straight out. And that's how I got this to break free and come loose. So now I think I'm ready to pull the whole system off. And now that I have the exhaust up off the floor and up on my workbench here, I noticed that the support, the two bolts that were on the bottom here, this whole support didn't really need to come off the bike, seeing how there's two more bolts right here on the inside. However, I don't really know how easy you would have been able to get to these bolts if while it was on the bike. So it's probably just as well that they came off, but also I probably would have taken this off anyway, so I can also clean this up and paint it as well. So anyway, I'm going to take these 2 bolts off, and then that should be it, and then I'm going to start cleaning it up. All right, so the cleanup process is coming along. I've been using the wire wheel to clean up pretty much everything so far, as far as like, the rustiness of the pipe and whatever else that's been, rusty, and getting all the dirt and grime off with the wire wheel. I'm going to end up painting everything black before I wrap it. I am only wrapping from the muffler portion here and here up to the engine block, and then I'm going to leave the mufflers unwrapped, but I'm not going to leave them chrome like they are. They're definitely not, perfect. They got all sorts of scratches and scuffs and dings, and there's a little bit of rust on them and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to I'm going to paint that black as well. But part of the cleanup process is to get the paint to stick to this smooth chrome. So I have 220 grit sandpaper here, and I've already kind of started. As you can see, it's dull and scratched there now because of the sandpaper. So I'm going to do that as much as I can to as many spots as I can so that I can get better adhesion with the paint. And the paint that I have found online that people are using the most is just barbecue paint. A lot of people have recommended this and had really good luck with it. So I'm going to base it off of those reviews, and I'm going to go with it. So I have matte black because everything on my bike that is black is matte finish. So that's what I'm choosing. So, all right, I'm going to finish up scuffing this all up, and then maybe try to get 1 coat of paint on tonight. Just a quick tip on sanding. I don't know why I didn't think of this earlier, but I already did it when I was fixing up my fenders. Instead of sanding by hand, I'm using my random orbital sander here, and it makes quick work of sanding up and scratching up the chrome. So on, when it's easiest to use this. So on the outside surfaces here, you might as well go a little bit quicker with the orbital sander. And then where you can't get the orbital sander, you just have to sand by hand. All right, these are the heat shields. This is the one that goes over the skinnier portion of the pipe. As you can see, it's got some rust on the inside here. So I'm actually going to take these to work and put them in the sandblaster and hit them up really quick. That'll be the best way to rough everything up, especially on the inside here where I can't really get to that inside curve. Same with these pieces as well. So my plan is to wrap the heat shields as well. And other than that, here are the pipes. I kind of rigged up a little wire system here so I could kind of hang it and spray it. So I'm going to put 1 coat on now. From what I understand, like I said before, I've done some reading, and it's or some research with some videos, that it's light coats, 4 light coats equals 1 big heavy coat. So that's where I'm going to start right now, is throw a light coat on. So what makes this process really quick, if you have a sandblaster or a sandblasting cabinet. I'm at work and I got one that I can use. Unfortunately, it's not that big for the whole exhaust, but it's going to work really well for these heat shields. So let's take a peek at what the difference will be. All right, so just a little quick spot there. As you can see, much cleaner versus the rusty surface on the rest of it. And on the outside, it's definitely much more dull for better paint adhesion. So sandblaster works quick, gets into all the little nooks and crannies a lot easier than sanding by hand or using a wire wheel. So there's the first coat. Definitely not full coverage, a little transparent right there, but they're already looking pretty good. I'm already excited about the fact that they're a different color. I think they look great. So that's it for tonight. So there they are, all painted up. I ended up doing, went through the whole can, ended up doing 4 coats of paint with the Rust-Oleum high heat, and I had just enough to do 4 coats on the exhaust, the main exhaust, and the little heat shields. So I'm not exactly sure the process of, I know when you buy some of the high heat paint, you're supposed to bake it on. And that's all well and good for this, but I want to put the wrap on as well. So I'm not really sure if I should put the wrap on before heat is applied to it. So what I'm going to do is temporarily hook the pipes back up to the bike. So I got the pipes back on, but I had a little bit of an issue getting them on. I originally put that support on, the one you can see right here. It's supposed to be bolted to the exhaust, so I bolted it to the exhaust. Then I tried to get the whole exhaust onto the frame, onto the bike, and when the support was on the stud, the front pipe lined up, but the rear pipe didn't. It was off by like a ½ an inch. The pipe was not inside the exhaust port. It was like sticking out over here. So, but then when I took the support off that stud, I could get the pipes in no problem. So couldn't really figure that out. The only thing I did for now is I took the 2 bolts right here off. So the pipes are actually only being held on by those 2 nuts up there at the exhaust ports. So whatever, I'm going to turn the bike on and see if I can get, on the can it says that there's going to be a little bit of smoke coming off at the beginning when I would assume that's the paint curing or whatever. So I'm going to let the bike idle for a little bit, and maybe it'll off gas some of that stuff and fully cure the paint. And then I'm going to have to let everything cool down and revisit how I'm going to actually get these pipes back on fully supported. I just wanted to highlight the smoking that's happening right now. It's really not that bad. You can see it coming off right there. So I want to let it run for about 10 minutes, and hopefully the smoking will subside. 10 minutes of run time at idle, and I just shut it off, and I don't see any smoke coming off whatsoever. So now that I'm back in the garage and there's no wind at all, so I would assume that that's been properly cured. All right, so I just figured out how to get the pipes back on. They weren't lining up at all on this rear pipe. So what I did was, to figure it out, was I loosened or took off the 2 nuts on both sides, just so the pipes would have some little bit of wiggle room. I have the support on the stud here, not bolted down. And then what I did was I was able to move this support as well as move the pipes, and I was able to get the 2 bolts in while everything was like loose and can move. So the 2 bolts are in, not completely. You can't see them. Actually, you can see them right here. They're not in completely, but they are screwed in. So what I'm going to do now is just start tightening things down. I think what I may try first is tighten down the 2 support bolts, and then, or maybe I'll tighten down these first because these are more important. I'll tighten down these first, and then I'll go ahead and sure up the support bolts. And then after that, it's just putting the rest of the bolts on. So you can get the nut here. There's a little shield that goes over the top you can put on and get that secured down. It's the shield secures here and here. And then there's one more bolt that goes back on underneath right here into this hole. I should probably get that one in now, actually, while everything is still loose, to make sure that it goes in. So I'll do that one first. Then I'll tighten these guys up. Then I'll go back here and tighten all this stuff up. Okay, the pipes are back off the bike after some thought, and it's probably pretty obvious to most people, but I took the pipes off because I think it's going to be a lot easier to wrap them off the bike versus taking all the excess, pulling it through, pulling it tight, taking all the excess, pulling it through. Yeah, it just sounds like a nightmare. So anyway, I'm ready to start wrapping. I'm going to do this front section here. Made the decision to take the heat shield off of this front pipe. You can see it's a lot wider diameter than this pipe here. I'm going to leave the heat shield on that pipe. So I'm going to do this one first because it's going to be easier to do because there's no heat shield. It's just not a straight pipe, obviously, but it's just nothing else going on. I don't have to hold the shield down. There is, on the stock Honda pipes, there's a little clip right here. I just took a hammer to that and just hammered it down. And by the time you get the wrap on it, you're not really going to notice it. So I'm going to start here on the bottom. I was just watching a couple of videos and I didn't even think about this. The wrap is kind of like the shingles on your house, where the shingles on your house, you start at the bottom, put the bottom one on, the one on top overlaps the bottom one. And so when the rain comes down, the rain is shedding off the shingles. Not if it was in the opposite direction, the rain could get behind the shingles, right? So we're going to start here, and then it's going to basically keep overlapping itself. So the wind and the rain that comes from this way, if you ride in the rain, is less likely to get underneath, right, and get trapped in there. So, so we're going to start on the bottom and work our way to the top. Okay, so I'm going to start by wrapping. Get it on here. I'm going to pull it tight, basically get a wrap or wrap and a half started with not much spiraling in this direction. I'm just trying to get it built up so it can hold on to itself. Nice and tight there. I'm going to use a zip tie to get started and make sure it doesn't move. All right, so the zip tie is just temporary so that I can wrap this, and I'm not going to put my clamps on just yet. That way it's just a temporary thing. If I have to stop and go back, it's just a zip tie. So at this point, I'm going to start wrapping. And going for, I've seen anywhere from 1/4 of an inch overlap to 3/4 of an inch to half the wrap. So I'm basically going to go about 3/4 of an inch, and which it looks like I'm kind of going more like a half wrap here. So, but I'm going to go about, yeah, so 3/4 of an inch is pretty much like half of this wrap. So that's what I'm going for here. And and this is much easier doing it off the bike already, because I can hold the wrap, I can pull it tight, I can pull it around the end of the pipe, and it's not getting caught on anything. So, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wrap the whole thing, and we'll see you at the end of the pipe. All right, just a quick little tip here. When you get to the bend in the pipe, it's going to start to have like straight sections. You just wrap, and there's no buckling and there's no nothing. So when you get to a bend, there's going to be, the material is the same, right? So it's going to have some extra material on the outside versus on the inside. So it's going to be off the pipe. Well, when you wet this wrap and then you pull it really tight, it kind of stretches a little bit, takes up that extra material, and you just keep wrapping, all right? So that's why you need to make sure you're always pulling it so there's no little air gaps and stuff, especially on the corners. So make sure you get it nice and tight. All right, so there it is, wrapped up. I went to the end and did another, like the same at the beginning. I got to the end and went like another wrap and a half around. And I think what I'm going to end up doing is, so if this is the bike right here, this is the top where everybody sees. I think I'm going to end it underneath so you don't see the end of the wrap. And then I'm going to put my metal clamp on. Now, so the wrap usually comes with these metal zip ties here, and they're nice because they're low profile, and that's all well and good. And you know, you don't have to look at this big thick wrap. However, they're really kind of a pain in the neck to use, and I've watched some videos on how to get them to perform and get nice and tight. But it's kind of tricky, and I don't even feel like dealing with it right now. Plus, I've seen a lot of people use these hose clamps, and even though they're a lot thicker, and they got the ridges in there from the screw, I don't mind the look of it. My buddy did it on his bike. I think it looks just fine. Plus, way easier to use. You just use a screwdriver to tighten them up, all right? So, yeah, the screw is ugly, and it's big and bulky and stuff, so I'm definitely not gonna make sure that the screw is sitting out here on the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure it's underneath on the bottom with the head facing back, because the front of the bike is right here. The front frame of the bike is right here, which is right where the radiator is. So there's no real room to get a screwdriver in there. So make sure you have the screw head facing back. And that way you can go right in next to the cylinder and you can go in and tighten it up. So, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure it's on there facing back. And once you get it where you want it to be, you can get your scissors and cut it off. I'm going to go, like I said, I'm going to have it ending down here on the bottom. Get rid of that excess there. I'm going to get my clamp on, get it started. I had to unscrew it there. Get it started. Now that it's ready to go, you can make sure you pull it as tight as you can. And then we'll get your clamp over it. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this definitely a lot tighter. I'm going to get my drill. This will help move things along a little faster. I don't know if I would tighten it with this completely, but it just gets you closer to where you need to be faster. All right, so I've pulled this wrap and I've twisted the wrap as tight as I can possibly make it. And I'm going to get in here. And as I was saying earlier, you want to make sure the screw is facing backwards so that you can easily get at it as I'm sitting here tightening this down off the bike where nothing's in the way. But I was just thinking in terms of like, if you ever needed to take it off or for whatever reason, I don't know, you can get access to it. And yes, this also looks ugly right here, this little extra piece. So once I know everything's good, I'm going to go back in there and I'm going to cut that off so it's just so it's not sticking out. I mean, I paid $7 for 4 of these clamps. So if I cut this off and then something happens, I have to take this off and redo it, and I can't use the clamp again because that's too short. Not a big deal. I'm willing to risk it a little bit. But I think that looks pretty good. So there we go. One section done. I'm digging it. For the next section, it's going to be a little more difficult. Just because there's more stuff in the way. All right, you have the front pipe coming in, and then it's welded to a support in the back, so it's connected to the back pipe. So there's that. But I got the heat shield on here, and the heat shield is not clamped on. Like I did at the beginning of the video, I cut the clamps off, so it's not being held on anymore. It will be held on by the wrap right there. So I do have it clamped down to the bench. I'm using rags and my woodworking clamps that have a rubber clamping face to them, so it's helping protect this as much as possible. But yeah, so I'm not really sure how this is going to go. I think because it wants to move a little bit, as you can see. So I think, but when you get this side, when I get this side wrapped nice and tight, it's just going to kind of fall into place and, you know, be wrapped where it needs to be wrapped, or the metal will flex as I wrap down here, but it'll, instead of moving the whole piece and sticking it up over here as I push down over here, I was able to actually hold this with one hand and flex the whole heat shield with the other hand while this stayed in place. So once I get it wrapped and I have the zip tie around this side to get it started, then it's not going to go anywhere. I think it's going to be just fine. So we will see. So there it is. Looks pretty good. The heat shield on the end here was definitely a little wider than what I would have liked, or I thought looked okay, you know, whatever. So I backed off the wrap a little bit, clamped it in place with my woodworking clamp there, and then used the clamp to tighten it down and kind of pre-squash the and bend in the heat shield a little bit. And then I wrapped it all up and finished it off. So gonna get it on the bike so I can start it up and dry them off. All right, so there they are on the bike. I think they look pretty sweet. Obviously we got, I think right now this is just steam coming off because of how wet the wrap is. So could be a mixture of both, whatever. The back one almost started steaming immediately. The front one is just starting to right now. So whatever, I'm going to leave it running as long as I need to get these dried up to operating temp. So yeah, they should be a little bit lighter in color once they're dry, so we'll see. And that's it. Ran it for about 10-15 minutes or so till it stopped smoking or steaming or whatever. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Just ran it at idle. It definitely got hot enough, that's for sure, because my coolant fan came on, which it normally doesn't come on if I'm riding the bike because the wind is enough to cool out the radiator. But if it's just sitting there idling and it gets hot enough, it turns on. But I think the color looks a lot better when it's drier. It's a little bit of a brighter, like copper-ish kind of color. And I really like the fact that this is no longer chrome anymore on the end of the mufflers. I have seen this part of the muffler wrapped as well. I don't know, to me, for the stock exhaust, I'd rather just, I think it looks better if the pipe is wrapped here, into here, versus all the way down. So, but it looks better black than chrome, in my opinion, especially with the rest of the bike. It's not really a heavily chromed out bike here. And yeah, that's it. So the only thing I have left to do now is to put the clutch cable back on. This is probably going to be a two-person job, mainly because I'm going to have to move the clutch in with, this probably going to be two-hand job pushing that in, and then just to get that little end of the cable on to the clip here is going to be tough. So but anyway, that's it. Once that's back on and screwed on, then I'm good to go for a ride. I'd ride it today right now, but it's raining out. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you learned something, and that's all I got for you. See ya.